Okay, so hello everybody. Thank you for coming here. This is our information session for the proposed parish agreement between Trinity Lutheran Bowmanstown, Dinkey Memorial Ashfield, and St. John's Mahoning. So the three congregations coming together to share in a parish setting. So I want to share some information with you and here we go, my notes to go from here today. Now, as we progress forward here, what I'm going to ask, I'm going to go through and share all the information, and any questions you may have, I invite you to please write them down, and then I will have a question period at the end then with that, okay? So that way I can make sure I get through everything that I need to here. So, all righty. Now, what is this parish agreement? What is this necessarily? So the parish agreement would be something similar to what we have with the purchase of service with Dinkey Memorial right now. So I am the called pastor of Dinkey Memorial Lutheran Church. So my call is through there. They sell off a portion of my time here to Trinity. And so you are purchasing my services, hence the title there, Purchase of Service Agreement. What we are now looking at doing is forming a parish agreement where three churches will be sharing together in my services with that and sharing that. So now, why would we do this? There are three reasons why we want to explore this possibility. One is the decreasing number of pastors that we have, especially here in Northeast Penn. We're seeing it across the entire ELCA and across denominations. But we're seeing those numbers go down. And so to share, oh my goodness, I can't believe I did that. I closed this up. I have a video clip I need to show you. I was not even thinking. Oh. Get that up and going, and the projector here fired up again. So we have had a decreasing number of pastors here for a long time, that it's been going down. And it's hitting a critical point here right now with this. Especially when you have the baby boomer generation retiring, and less people going into seminary. We just have this perfect storm of there are not enough pastors. So how do we share that resource together with that? And that's where a lot of this has stemmed from, is that aspect of it. You know, how do we share together? How do we share our resources? So what I would like to do is share with you a report from our synod assembly that was recently held. Make sure I get this as clear as I can here for you. There we go. And,
drinking water before bed burns 46 pounds in 2 weeks.
Sorry, the ads that pop up here.
To lose weight and you're over 25, then you need to hear.
There we go.
Witness a large number.
Okay. And I thought I had it set. Oops. I was at the end of it. I apologize. Come on. There we go. Okay. So I have it set here. Let me share on the screen for those of you at home so you can see this as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Charlotte. I deeply appreciate the work that you all do, and also lifting up those Good Shepherd rehabilitation connections is so valuable and important. And part of that Stronger Together that we have through the partners that we have in ministry together. I also am ready now to connect you with our own secretary again, who has his report ready to go. So we're going to be hearing next from our Secretary of the Synod and Synod Council to present the Secretary's report, and that goes to Carl Shankweiler.
I'm sorry, and that is Bishop DeForest right there that was speaking.
Yeah. Although the Secretary is normally expected simply to draw attention to the report of the Secretary and ask for corrections to be sent in, this year I gave notice that I actually want to talk about this report. which you will find on pages 11 through 16 of the Bulletin of Reports.
If you go on the Synod website, you can find that bulletin of reports.
You may have noticed what I want to point out. That is, since our last assembly, we list 2 ordinations of ministers of word and sacrament, 2. During the same period, we list 12 retirements, 12. Compare those numbers, 2 pastors coming in, 12 pastors going out, a net loss of 10. Now, granted, we also receive pastors from other synods, but we lose some too to other synods. Granted, some retired pastors continue to serve in significant ways, but not usually after they're dead. And last year we had 11 deaths, sadly to say. But you may wonder, was last year an odd year? What's it like going back several years? Well, for the last 5 years, the tally has been as follows. Ordinations, 13. Retirements, 48. Deaths, 47. The discrepancy between ordinations, 13, and retirements, 48, was 35. During those 5 years, only in 2018 did we witness a large number of ordinations, 8. But even that year, there was 1 more retirement than ordination. It is increasingly true that with ever fewer pastors, those pastors need to be shared. Consider the example of Dinkey Memorial, Ashfield, and Trinity, Bowmanstown. They and their pastor, the Reverend and concerned Anthony Pagano, have worked out an agreement with St. John Mahoning to become a 3-way parish. The vote to approve their plan will occur this Sunday.
This is from a few weeks ago.
Ashfield and Bowmanstown did not need to include Mahoning. That is, they could afford Pastor Pagano all by themselves. But they were concerned that Mahoning needs a pastor too. And so they looked to sharing theirs. Do you know that old song? The man who has plenty of good peanuts and giveth his neighbor none, shalln't have any of my peanuts when his peanuts are gone. Here it is, sung by a certified opera singer, Amanda Crider.
That's his niece, by the way. So.
Is that song Christian? No. Even when the selfish man with the peanuts runs out of them, the parable of the prodigal son would still encourage us to welcome him into our peanut emporium. But at least the song does remind us that conditions change, and that even if you don't share your peanuts or pastors out of Christian charity, sharing might still be prudent, in that the time could easily come when you will be the ones lacking and want others to share with you. Thank you for reading and for thinking deeply about the dull, inspiring, and thoroughly bureaucratic report of the abominable secretary.
Thank you, Carl. That's fantastic.
Okay.
We appreciate that.
So, obviously, Reverend Shankweiler has a strange sense of humor. In how he does things, but his point comes across. There's a dire need for this. Just there are not enough pastors, and so in sharing together here, it helps us to, cover some of that need. Now, one of the sheets I just handed out to you is, where is it now? I want to put it up here for you. Oh, there we go. It is the available call sheet that you have. It's listed there. It shows all the available calls that are in the synod. So it's a separate sheet, the single one, the first one I handed out. Pastors that are available that have completed their paperwork. There's other ones that are out there as well that haven't completed their paperwork yet, and part-time calls. And I just want to point out, this isn't about, do churches have money to pay for it? You will notice the last one on that list, atonement, why I'm missing, is possibly the wealthiest congregation in the entire synod. They can't get one because there's nobody out there, right? So this isn't a matter of, like I said, congregations having the money. And that's why I just wanted to show you that list for that church alone right there being on there with that. So one reason why we would do this, decreasing number of pastors, need to share that resource. 2, financial aspect of it. Okay, it is, it's not cheap to have a pastor. It is not cheap. And I will tell you right now, I am about as cheap as it comes for a pastor, seriously. 1, I'm below the synod guidelines. 2, I am on my wife's health insurance. And so there's no health insurance there. And 3, we live in the parsonage at Dinkey. So there's no housing allowance on there. So when I spoke with another colleague of mine and I shared that, she goes, wow, you are cheap. The expenses are cheap. Let's just call it that. Okay, we'll label it that way. All right, the expenses are cheap. So, and to show you very quickly here, I have another document that I handed out for you to look at. Besides the available calls was the compensation sheet here. So here it shows you exactly what it costs for a pastor here in Northeast Penn. So those are updated every year. They show an updated list there, and those are approved at the synod assemblies there. So they have a group of people in the synod that work on that every year to put that together, and they compare salaries with neighboring synods and that as well, and try to be comparable in that regard. So that's approved every year. So decreasing number of pastors, financial aspect, it makes it cheaper for everyone. And the third part of it is, in all sincerity, it's a part of being Christian. John chapter 21, when Jesus, after his resurrection, he appears to the disciples on the beach, and he says to them, feed my lambs, tend my sheep, feed my sheep. He's speaking to Peter when he says this, right? He's speaking to Peter as he says this. And it's not just for Peter that he's saying this. It's about for all of us who are Christians, who are following his teachings, sharing our resources, sharing those things for those who are in need. And St. John's is in need right now. And I want you to know we are not alone in this. After the presentation was shared during the Synod Assembly a few weeks ago by Reverend Shankweiler, that following week, I had 2 other congregations reach out to me and they want to know what it was that we were doing here because they feel like they need to be doing the same thing. One congregation was from Kutztown, another one was from up north. So it's not that we are in this strange situation. We've got them on either end of us across this synod that are calling in and wanting to know, what are you doing? We want to hear more about it. So this is, it's out there. People want to know what's going on. All right, now, my perspective and why would I want to do this? Personally, it's not my first choice. I think the easiest thing would be to be in one congregation, serving one church, and doing that and focusing there. Because I'll tell you what, even just this morning, like getting ready for worship or being able to come here and set up, hauling stuff around here and getting things in and hustling in the door each week and and setting up Zoom, because this is important stuff. I want to be doing this, but easy thing would be, hey, set up in one church and just do it all there. So it's not my first choice to be going to 3 different congregations, but I love the area. I love the people. My wife and my children are here, and this is where we want to be. So we might get on each other's nerves, and we might get angry with one another once in a while as congregation and pastor and that, but the love is still there. So please know that, okay? And I see myself as a resource. Every time I meet with couples, or families, I'm sorry, I should say families for funerals, I say to them, I want to be a resource for you. You know, how can I best support you in what it is you're going through? And I see myself as a resource for the congregations, and I'm a diminishing resource. So how do we share that resource that is available? And the last part here is I've done this before. And during my internship, when I was in North Dakota, I was part of a 5-point parish out there. It was my supervisor and myself, and we covered 5 different congregations. So I experienced this there. And I heard of other congregations when I was out in North Dakota. It was 9 congregations who were sharing this together, sharing together pastors and sharing resources. So this isn't anything new. This isn't anything that hasn't been done before. It's just what needs to be done in situations. So, and if you want to know more about what it is that I have, how I feel and my perspective of it as we went through, I invite you to go back and check the newsletter articles. I did send out the email with those articles attached to it. If you need those, let me know. I can get them to you. But I had newsletter articles in March, April, and June. So that addressed that we're talking about this. So, all right. That's all perspective and everything else. The agreement itself. So now I invite you to turn to the agreement, the packet that's stapled together there, and we look at that. How many years am I in the ministry? I was ordained in 4, so it's 18 years. 18 years now, yeah, on that, so. All right, the top paragraph there in the first page, let me put that up for you, those of you at home here. Okay, top paragraph on the first page is just saying that it is between those 3 congregations, Trinity, Dinkey, and St. John's. Number 1, equality. There is equal partnership in the parish in terms of the council, in terms of leadership. So the plan is we put together a parish council and have representatives from each congregation that are on there. So equal representation of each congregation on there, right? When it comes to the financial aspect of it, there it is not equal. And that's where you will see 42% Dinkey Memorial, 25% Trinity, and 33% for St. John's. There we were looking at membership, Sunday attendance, and said, he is our called pastor. We feel as though we should be paying more. They took that on themselves there for that. So that's where those ratios come in with the 42, 25, 33. It's just financial responsibility within there. So that's how that comes into play. The parish council, number 2, you will see there's 3, we're asking for 3 members from each congregation to be representing on that council. So that's where the equality comes in there with that council. And there's just a rotating cycle that's explained in that paragraph, number 2. Number 3, for officers, they will be elected by that council once it is appointed, and it'll be on a year-to-year basis. The only thing that would be different in there is the treasurer position. The thing that was changed around in there is that the treasurer can be someone who is not serving on the council, because we may have someone with those talents, with those gifts, but they're not necessarily serving on that parish council. But that person can serve in that role there. Anyway. Okay. The purpose of the council to facilitate everything, and they would more or less act as a mutual ministry committee. in that regard. How are things going with each congregation? How am I doing in the midst of that? And I need to be honest with that parish as well. How am I holding up and how am I doing? What do I need to do? What do I need to better serve you? What do you need from me to be better serving you? Okay, number 5 is about the call. The call will take place through Dinkey Memorial. Okay, my call remains through Dinkey. And the other 2 churches then, like I said, this is where the similarity comes in with the purchase of service. You're affirming that call, and I am then coming and serving as your pastor through that affirmation of the call. Number 6, hired staff. A lay pastoral assistant or a contracted pastor and any additional lay staff of the parish shall be selected by the parish council upon recommendation by the parish's called pastor. Now, they have that say, if we're going to be hiring somebody on, though, I think it's beneficial to be coming back to the congregations, and we did say, but council has that authority. The parish council has that authority to hire someone, but we want the congregations to be on board with that as well. Now, the budget, there will be a budget that's set each year for that. That will be set. Reporting, there's an annual report that would have to go out to each congregation. The coordination for this, just so the communication is in there with that, they would like at least one parish council member to be a member of the congregation's council, of the individual congregation's council. So, mutual ministry committee, the parish, as I said, the parish council serving in that part. Termination, I'm sorry, I didn't scroll down on screen here. I am so sorry. Termination, number 11. This parish shall continue until any congregation provides notice of at least 60 days that it wishes to withdraw from the parish. So, unless the dissolution of the parish would result in the called pastors being employed less than 3/4 time, in which case 90 days notice is required, so that more time is available to secure a new call for the pastor or to form a new parish with another congregation or congregations. Okay, so you can back out, but the pastor goes with the parish, is what it's saying. And so if someone backs out of it, they're welcome to do so, and those congregations who remain are welcome to bring in other congregations to that parish. Additional members, this just leaves the door open that say there are other congregations in the area that get in the same boat. Can we come together? Like I said, out in North Dakota, there were 9 congregations that came together, that were working together. So, and this just keeps that door open for bringing in others if the need be. That's the only reason for that additional membership aspect. For number 12, and I forgot to scroll again. There we go. Now, constitutional provisions. Along with adopting this parish agreement, it is understood that all member congregations will accept and adopt at the first convenient time the ELCA's Chapter 20, the parish authorization. What that Chapter 20 covers is a parish setup and how that works. So in order to be part of that parish, we get that in there. Now it is a process, and we can do this in steps. We can enter into that parish agreement without having that in the Constitution initially, but it needs to be added at some point in there within the Constitution. And that comes from the entire ELCA. That's not the synod or anything else. That's the ELCA requirements. And then what you have on page 3 is the resolution. So this resolution here deals with just that parish agreement only. So I kind of set this up a little bit different than those first handouts that we had. So this agreement goes with that, or this resolution goes with that agreement and everything we just covered. Okay. Now, if we flip to page 4, here's that Chapter 20. So here's the part that needs to be adopted in as part of our Constitution within the congregation. Again, that's from the ELCA, and there's the resolution for that adoption for us. So that's something that will be addressed on July 24th. Both those resolutions will come to the floor at that time there for that then. And then page 5 then is the financial agreement for sharing the parish staff and how that would be broken down. Number one would be a pay increase for me, $4,000 a year, taking on that extra work there, the third parish for the 4,000. There you go. It still has me, I think, below, it's still below the recommended guidelines, even with that. So don't worry, I'm still cheap in that regard. Okay. All right. Now, a lay pastoral assistant to serve 20 hours per week at $24 an hour. And there you see some of the figures that go with that in A, B, C, D, E. And the total cost for the year being $28,369. So it brings the total cost for the new arrangement in number 3 to $33,869, in addition to the current expenses that the congregations have. Okay. Now you will notice on number 3, there's also a note on the side. For those of you that are online, it is right here, this note. An ordained pastor for 20 hours per week. The rate then for pastors is $30 an hour for an ordained minister. So that would change the numbers in there. Right now we're looking at lay pastoral assistant though. So, and here you have the charts at the bottom for how that is broken down. There with that, you have the current arrangement in the first chart, this section right here. That's our current arrangement with Dinkey. And the possible one is the lower chart that we're looking at with the 42, 25, 33 breakdown of responsibility. Now, I misspoke at our meeting when we were there. I reversed the numbers when I was looking at them. There is an increased cost for Trinity of $600 a year in going into this parish agreement. So I had said it was cheaper, and I apologize. Like I said, I reversed the numbers when I looked. So it would cost Trinity in going into this agreement $600 more than the current budget right now. Okay. Per year, yes. I think that's what it was if I look correctly, right? Yeah, it's a little over $600, $642. Yeah. 642 would be the expense difference there with that. And then on the next page, on 6, you have the resolution for adoption for that financial package and what that would look like. So that's the third part of it then. So there are 3 different resolutions that we are looking at for July 24th right now. The first, the agreement itself. The second, the constitutional amendment that needs to be added. And the third part is the financial agreement and how it would all work. So those are the 3 resolutions. And then the last pages that I have in there will be the proposed contract for the lay pastoral assistant that would come in. So that's what that is. Why? I don't know why it doesn't show up when I do the share screen. There are lines that are in here for people to sign, but it doesn't show up on there. When you print it, it's there. So, but that's that sample contract. So, all right. Now I've gone through it. My mouth's been going a lot. I'll shut up, take a drink of water, and now it's time for you. You can ask any questions or share anything that you want to now. So, all right, Nicole, go ahead. What's up?
Is that like, is there gonna be an issue or do we just add it?
Is that chapter 20?
Yeah.
And adding it in. Okay, so the question is, are there issues with that? There's a process we have to go through for making an amendment to our Constitution. It has to be approved through the Synod office. And so what we need to do is adopt that resolution in the initial meeting. It goes to the Synod office for approval, and then it comes back to the congregation for a final approval then at our next congregational meeting that we have. So that's the process that we have to go through. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Mike.
Similar, do you know if Trinity follows or has in the past adopted that model?
Has Trinity adopted that model constitution as a whole? I got to be honest with you, I don't know.
That's interesting.
I don't know. And that's something that I definitely want to be looking at in the time coming forward here with that. But as for the time being, what we would do is just get that chapter 20 in there. And then, I'm sorry, the question that was asked is, has the congregation adopted the model constitution of the ELCA? And I'd have to go back and look and compare. And I didn't take the time to do that. Sorry.
And next question.
Mhm.
What was the outcome of the vote at St. John's, Dinkey? I heard here.
Okay.
I mean,
It's what was the the question was asked, what was the outcome of the vote at the original congregational meetings that the congregation had set aside for June 12th? I think that was the date that we all had that vote. So the votes at St. John's and Dinkey were both unanimous to go forward at their congregational meetings. And the vote we had here was to postpone making a decision until, the decision we had here was postponed until July 24th on voting and making a decision on this. So that's where that sits. Anybody else? I know I did a lot of talking before. I was trying to be as thorough as possible and made sure I got everything out there. So you're on, well, I'll tell you what, she's got, oh, go ahead. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
So if Trinity congregation votes no, what happens?
Okay, so the question is, if Trinity as a congregation votes no not to do this, what happens? Right now, currently, we are in a purchase of service agreement with Dinkey. So that remains intact. What doesn't go into effect is that parish agreement. It more or less dies at that moment there. The parish agreement dies then with that. I will say that since then, Dinkey, in order to provide ministry for St. John's, has entered into a second purchase of service agreement. So just like the one that is with here at Trinity, between here and Trinity and Dinkey to purchase my services, Dinkey has now entered into one with St. John's. Madison DeLuca was hired on as the lay pastoral assistant. She is entering seminary in August. So for the next 6 weeks here, well, almost 5, tomorrow will be 5 weeks, she is going to be serving in that role of lay pastoral assistant, which Dinkey hired on, and they are purchasing her services as well as mine. It's kind of a combo thing there of 20 hours a week. So between the two of us, we are over there we cover Trinity, or I'm sorry, cover St. John's for 20 hours a week. And that is a temporary agreement through that time that Madison is here for that agreement. So that's just what's in place here right now. So that's where it's at. That's where it's at right now. Yeah.
Go ahead, talk.
Okay, go ahead. You've got a question. Did you guys have a question too?
Yes.
I will come to you. I will come to you
Good,
next
good.
after I get one. After I get one here. Go ahead.
I have 2 different questions.
Okay.
One is with the money.
Okay.
You stated that Trinity will end up paying $642 per year more
Correct.
with this agreement,
Correct.
but we don't lose any number of hours with that, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
You do not
So we
lose
don't
any
lose
hours.
but we also don't gain any extra
You-
hours.
you do not-
Extra pay.
That is correct. You don't gain any hours with that. What you do gain from that is someone else who could be brought in with other experience with that. So you're not just limited to me with my experience and what I know. Now you have somebody else who has maybe different talents. Maybe they're better and they could be better in different areas of the church where I am not. And so you're gaining their experience within that.
Are you
So.
thinking about Madison?
Not necessarily Madison or anyone who fills that position is going to bring different talents than I do. So now you have that person's talents within the congregation to share there as well.
But we won't
So.
have Madison come 5 weeks from now, you said? Like,
August. Yeah. If this agreement is agreed upon here, it's not going to be Madison that we're going to have here with it. We have to figure out something else because she's going to seminary. She's going to Princeton. So Princeton Seminary, and she's going to be over there. So she's not going to commute back on weekends for this. So, yeah.
To that's going to be in her position
All right.
after she leaves.
Right. Do we have anyone in mind that would fill Madison's position after she leaves? Short answer, no. There were two people, we were exploring the options. The one backed out, withdrew their name. The other one ran into health concerns that they're still dealing with. So they were unable to be a part of that. So we're going to have to explore that some more. Now, a tough thing we run into here is because of the vote and her leaving and where that's at, we're kind of up in the air. It's like what we're doing is saying to someone, we think this could be a possibility for this to be here, but we won't know yet if you can commit to that. So that's why we got to wait and see there with it. And Tom. That's what she was just saying. Who would the lay pastoral assistant be? Right now, we don't. We are building this plane in the air as we go. That's what it is. That's what we're doing. We're trying to make go of it. Now, I will share with you the one suggestion I had when I had a conversation with Pastor Shankweiler, the associate to the bishop, that's guiding us through with this. I said, we're looking at this that we want to get one person in there to fill this position. I said, what if we get more than one person in there and we split that 20 hours up? What if we have someone who's willing to preach, but they can't visit, like because of their work schedule? And what if we have someone who's willing to visit, but they don't want to stand up in front of people and preach? And so what if we have an agreement like that and fill it in that regard? I said, it's just something for us to think about and explore in that way. So I'm trying to think outside the box in that regard, that we're so used to saying, oh, we get one person to fill a position and do this, and maybe we just break it down a little more instead. So now, Art, I know you had a question.
Well, I like your idea of thinking outside the box, and it's been one that I've been trying to address with you and the Synod, and that is the Synod has not thought out of the box about dealing with the other 6 denominations that we're full communion partners with, like the Methodists and the UCC and the Reformed and the Presbyterians, and to look outside the box at them, because we can have full communion with them. They can preach in our churches as long as we don't merge congregations. And there's no outreach. I haven't gotten any response from the Synod. And I did, when I got back from Cleveland Clinic, forward that email to you about what I'd asked them, a week and a half ago. I like that idea, especially for our congregation, because I think we're going to lose 30 weeks out of the year of not having a pastor preach Sunday, and possibly, Christmas and Easter based on the rotation. And, your time, I think on Sunday is what most people see. Yes, visitation in the hospital is important, because you made 2 important ones, in the last month or so that were very important to members of the congregation. But yes, maybe that can be handled by somebody else. But those that come to church, really enjoy coming to church. And yet we have a dwindling population of the congregation that comes to church, but those that come are really endeared to coming to church. And the ELCA is not looking to change its mission of outreach, but the other outreach to the other congregations for assistance. And this reminds me about what happened back in the 80s when the ELCA was formed, because there was a lot of mission match. And, since people aren't joining the church in the numbers that they used to, and the younger people are not joining the church, the ELCA and the Synod need to change their mission statements, I think, and adjust accordingly as well. So that's not really a question, it's an observation, and the Synod needs to look at this, and hopefully your thinking out of the box will help this too.
All right, now, I don't know if you all heard, if you could hear what Bart was saying there, everything that he said. He was saying something about working with other denominations. We are in full communion partnership with other denominations, and can't we work together with them in some way? I will say, I know there are some congregations that are working together. They were trying to set something up at St. John's Lutheran Church in St. John's, up near Drums. They have a UCC church right next door, or is it United Methodist? One of the two. But they were trying to work together to call a pastor between the two of them. I've got a colleague of mine up north. What town is he in? Oh my goodness. Jaira Albers. He is serving both a Lutheran church and an Episcopal church. We've got a congregation a little west of us out here, St. John's Mansfield, that is right now, it's a federated congregation. It's both Lutheran and UCC, or St. Peter's. Sorry, thank you. Monsville. Yeah, St. Peter's, Monsville. Mike would know. So, oh, did they? Okay, all right. St. Peter's West Penn. Okay, yeah, that's what it is. So anyway, and they are a federated congregation, meaning they're both Lutheran and UCC, and they have a UCC pastor that's serving there right now. So I will tell you, I know from conversations I have had, they are trying to work with other denominations. The problem is other denominations are in the same boat we are. They don't have the pastors. That's the issue that we run into. Everybody's struggling right now with it. So yes, Mike, or you want to go, Tom? Okay, he's giving Tom his question. There you go.
When does the purchase service agreement run out with you?
The purchase of service agreement, the current one that we are in between Trinity and Dinkey Memorial, runs out on December 31st, 2022, and it has to be renewed each year. So it's a 12-month agreement with that.
What happens then if Dinkey decides not to do our contract?
If Dinkey decides not to renew the contract, I am no longer the pastor here because they are my called congregation with that. So that's, yes.
That said, what kind of supply pastors are available? Since we
What
are
are-
losing somebody
Right.
and then they're coming in,
Yeah,
how do you have
it's a
supply
good-
pastors available?
good
then?
question. Good question. Yeah, how many?
If we lose you, we don't have a pastor.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So the question was, what is, if like, say I were not the pastor here, what is the option for supply pastors? They do a round robin, they try and do is rotate it around. There are congregations that do not get a pastor and they're on their own for Sunday worship because there just are not enough of them to be able to rotate around. As we said, even the retired ones, we had 48 deaths in the past 5 years. Okay, 47 deaths, 48 retired. Thank you. So even though that retired number is large, you lost that same number of retired pastors through death. And that means you are not growing in number to be able to satisfy all the churches that don't have pastors growing in number, if that makes sense. So that's, yes, Bonnie. Okay, there was a program in place called the Psalm program, Synodically Authorized Lay Ministers, SALM, Psalm. And that's when people within congregations would go through training and they would serve a specific congregation. And they would get special dispensation from the bishop to preside at communion at that specific congregation where they serve. Pardon me? Emma Weaver is a psalm, yes. And she serves what was Grace Lutheran in Lehighton, that closed now, but Zion Packerton, and she's up in, what's the other one she just took on now? Is it in Lansford? I think she's up in Lansford, up there as well. And so she serves those two congregations as a synodically authorized lay minister. So she is not an ordained pastor, but she's been doing that for a long time too. Now, that was instituted under Bishop Strobel. That program was started. Bishop Zeiser stopped that program because there was seen to be a lack of oversight and things were kind of getting messy with it. So he shut the program down. Now, Bishop DeForest at our most recent Synod Assembly says he would like to resurrect that program with proper oversight and getting things organized in there again, because the need is so great. We need to be doing something different here with that. So that's something they're looking into doing. So does that? Okay. You know, there are certain instruction and things that I know the Psalm program would have. I got to tell you, I'm a little ignorant with the education program that they would have for the Psalms. I don't know. And I'm not familiar with the UCC and what they have to go through there for it either. So I can't compare there. But yeah, but I know there were some certain classes they needed to attend and all that to serve in that role. Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Yep. Mm-hmm. And I know some of that was done in the past too. I think they call it their Saturday school or something like that. I think on Saturdays they would take classes and there'd be seminary professors teaching things and that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, Barb.
In some past years, it's not real clear in my head, but we used to work with these a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how we did all that.
Yeah. Yeah. And oh yeah, there have been a lot of agreements with the UCC church and working together. You are correct. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes.
Because that, it's my happy question, but because of that program not being in effect
Mm-hmm.
and our contract ends in December with Dinkey and you,
Okay.
and the lack of supply pastors is a guarantee that we will have some Sundays where there is absolutely no pastor. So that means that we have nobody to give communion. And unless we have somebody in the congregation that's willing to speak and give something like a sermon, we have no sermon on a Sunday morning. Why would we want to deal with that? Is the question. Why would we as a congregation want to walk in on a Sunday morning and think, oh, we don't have a pastor today, now what do we do?
Oh.
It's not an option.
Yeah.
In my eyes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the statement in question that were made, say the purchase of service agreement expires between the congregations and there are no supply pastors. The here at Trinity is guaranteed that there will be Sundays without a pastor, no communion, no sermon, anything like that. And is that something the congregation wants to consider in that? Now, you are assuming here with this that it also means the contract wouldn't be renewed with Dinkey,
Yes.
the purchase service agreement.
I'm looking at
So,
what the worst
and
situation
that's the
is
worst,
going to be
right?
if we lose you.
Yeah. Well, not just me. It's just any pastor, any agreement in there where you're sharing a pastor. Yeah. So, yeah, and that's the thing. The purchase of service agreement, no matter what, at any point in this relationship, let's just look at between Dinkey and Trinity right now. We've been doing this for a few years. Either congregation could have ended this at any point with a 30-day notice, or it just wasn't going to be renewed at the end of the year. And so each congregation was kind of relying on that expectation of, yeah, we're going to keep on doing this because there were no issues that were arising there with that. So, and now we're just looking at bringing in a third congregation to continue that. So,
Yeah, basically is what that would be.
yeah.
Now, granted, in the parish proposed agreement that we're looking at,
Yeah.
I believe I read it in there, but I'm not sure, I may have heard it from somebody else, that because St. John's has their services at 10:45 and we have ours at 10:45, every other Sunday we lose you. And we have either a lay person or we have whoever the
Other hired person on there.
is.
Yeah.
Okay. So either way, we would lose you personally, at least some of the time. Do
Right. So what she's saying here is Sunday morning. What does that look like? What does that rotation look like? There would be 2 worship times that would happen with that. It would be 9 o'clock and 10:45. Dinkey's worship would be at 9 o'clock. I'm at Dinkey every week. They're my call congregation. That's why I would be there. The other services then at 10:45 would be an alternating between St. John's and Trinity. So I would be here every other Sunday. The lay pastoral assistant, if it's a called pastor, or if it's not a called pastor, if it's a retired pastor that's brought in part-time, you have communion, you have everything with that. The lay pastoral assistant, we would request special dispensation from the bishop for that person to be able to preside at communion. So that there would not be a break in the communion then with that. So that's what we're looking at. And in conversations I had with Pastor Shankwile, it's kind of like, they did not say this, or they did not say this outright, but my understanding of it was that yes, they're kind of looking at this, that person would get that dispensation for this, to be able to do that. So, yes.
So piggyback off of what Mike said about, say we don't really agree with this.
Yeah.
But like we don't agree to do the 3 churches.
Uh-huh.
And those 2 churches do. Would we still keep you with Dinkey's parish agreement?
That,
And then
okay.
they can have, their own little parish agreement, and we have our own little agreement? Does that still stand, even though we don't agree with this parish? The 3
I mean,
churches?
if Dinkey wants to do it, so the question was, does our parish agreement still stand if we don't agree to, does our purchase of service agreement still stand with Dinkey if we don't agree with the parish? And is Dinkey free to form another purchase of service agreement with St. John's for a longer term basis? Yes, they can do that. That is an option they have. That's on the table there. Yeah. There's different ways that we could be going here with that. Yes. Now, Pat was gonna.
I don't have a question. I just want to come out and say my grandparents all my life.
Uh-huh.
To me, a worse thing than having no pastor is having a story book. And I just see how we can go on with what you see, 18 people, 16 people sitting here Sunday after Sunday. My dear, don't do this. We're gonna start church. To me, this is the way to save the church. So
Yeah.
we don't have a, it's better than having.
I got you.
That's what I'm.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat. So Pat made just a comment here. I'm not going to say it as eloquently as you did there, Pat, but you just said that this church means so much to her from her family heritage and everything else. She sees this agreement as a way of the church to continue on and providing ministry in this area. Yeah. Yeah.
Are you going to do some of this before we have the vote? Because this is an excellent presentation. We should have this before the vote.
Yeah.
At one time.
Well,
A lot of people that will be here.
well, okay. So the question was asked, am I going to do this again before the vote? Now, we set the vote for that July 24th because of the way all the dates play out here with that. The only chance I would have to do this again would be the day of the vote. That's that day of. I don't know if we would want to go in as much depth as what we are here with this, but I think we could open up and at least have some questions and that with that. But I'm recording this here today that we're going to have, and I'm going to be posting this online. And it will be, so on my YouTube page, it's going to be on there for people to be able to go back and see this, and they can pause, rewind, listen to it again if there's certain things that they don't understand, and they can check things on there. So that's one of the reasons I want to record this today. So we can put that out there for everybody that way as well. Yeah. Yes.
Another option that I was thinking of with, and it would be if you're willing to do it, to have a service in the evening. Like congregating board don't want to travel. If they want to hear you, they don't want to travel to St. John's, and they don't want to travel to Dinkey. Was that ever something that was discussed about having an evening service or a Wednesday night service?
Okay. So the question that was phrased was, what about having worship outside of Sunday morning, an option outside of that Sunday morning? Yeah, there are times I think we limit ourselves in only having Sunday morning worship, that we have that. However, me from a personal aspect, I don't want to do it. I want to have time with my family. I'll be honest with you. That's what it is. I enjoy being married. So yeah, I'd like to stay that way. Okay. And if I'm in committing those extra services and doing that outside of there and have that on a regular basis, that can be that's tough. That's tough.
It was something I thought of that way.
Yeah.
Sunday morning, and there's people that say, well, I don't want to go and hear that layperson speak. I want to hear Pastor Gunn, but I don't feel like driving all the way to St. John's or Dinkey.
Yeah.
So
Gotcha.
I was wondering if that was something that had been.
Yeah, it was. I kind of keep trying to push it to the side myself. So yeah, I'll be honest. That's me. And I will tell you this. There was St. John's, Jim Thorpe, on the east side over there. That was the congregation that Dinkey had a purchase of service agreement prior to having the one with Trinity here. They had a Saturday night service. And when we went into that, I told them straight out, I said, I will go there once a month. I said, but that's it, because of my family, my commitment with my family and everything. That was it. And so for them to continue having that, they would hire supplies to be coming in there and doing that service. They're still doing it, and they're dwindling. They hardly have anybody there. I don't know, is it really, I mean, where do you draw the line on when it's worth it to even have a service like that? So, but that's just a question. Okay, Mike.
So we're getting to one of my most questions.
Geography and time question. Okay.
Well, like the geography of where you live at Dinkey, you're called at Dinkey.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a good thing going here with Dinkey, but now we want to help St. John's, and yet why isn't St. John's joining a parish with some other pastor? In other words, there could be two churches sharing a pastor, and then St. John's goes into a agreement with that other church, right?
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mess up your life. You don't have to do that partially or anything like that. And why are we so set in our times? Why couldn't we think start at 8:45, which would give you an hour and 15 minutes to the next start at 10, and then an hour and 15 minutes would be the next start at 11:15. And then if it's a 45-minute service, we'd all end at noon. And you could leave before the last hymn. You know, I mean, there's got to be some flexibility in the worship lifestyle.
Yeah. And I see what you're saying. So Mike's question was there a way we could organize worship services in a way to have 3 services on a Sunday morning? I guess we could figure something like that. But I already right now, there are times I'm late going in here. Like, I feel like maybe I'm not giving you the time you need there, or I'm leaving Dinkey early at a point where, and that it constricts it even more there with that, with trying to have that. And a 45-minute worship service, we'd have to trim down the liturgy, which I've been drilled by this congregation, how important we need to have liturgy. We need to sing the liturgy. We need to do this and that. That's gonna end. That's gonna end if that's what we do. So
again,
yeah.
It wouldn't just be you. There would be this lay person that would help pick up and have to coordinate things with that person so that they aren't going at all from churches, but making 2 weeks more Sunday morning.
But the other thing I gotta tell you is, for me, doing 3 worship services in a Sunday, I'm exhausted. By the time lunchtime rolls around, on days when I teach confirmation after this, I'm like, oh man, I'm exhausted. So, and adding a 3rd one in there, I'm wiped emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It drains me by the end of those 2 services and doing that.
That's nice.
And they don't find you a late person to help.
Yeah,
Or
and
two, or, you know. you said
Right.
it's two. That
right,
doesn't
whatever
matter.
it is that we figure something out. And it may end up in the very beginning that we don't have something figured out there with that. And we just need to do the best that we can in those situations there.
How is it that we don't have the control? I mean, that the Senate, being all powerful, is supporting this idea, but they're not, like you're saying, we're building this as we're flying along.
Mhm.
It just doesn't seem right. They should guarantee something to us, or it should be worked out ahead of time that this is the person, and that's why we're agreeing to go into this.
Well, and okay, so the question was, why, Mike, I don't know, you said a lot there. I'm not going to say this the right way here, but that why do we not have somebody in place? How can we agree on this without having someone? And why doesn't the Synod do more to do that? I think we're not the Catholic Church. This is not a power from above coming down on there. We see it as in the Lutheran Church, the power comes from below and up. And
We're not powerful.
and it's
We're the 25% here looking at complete failure because of lack of attendance, and if things could go wrong.
There's too many what ifs.
there are some what ifs that are in here. There are, but we're exploring something that's different and new for us.
For me, it's the history repeating itself, that I grew up in a congregation, Union Church.
Mhm.
And it was 2 pastors serving 8 congregations, 4 Lutheran and 4 UCC. St. John's Mahoning was one of them. I
Mhm.
mean, to me, this is going kind of backwards, but I can understand why, because there's not enough pastors.
Right. Oh, and I think what we are doing is coming back full circle again. This is what the church was years ago. You had a pastor serving the day and age. Yeah, the day and age of a pastor, one pastor per congregation is dead. That was such a blip in the history of the church. Honestly, that period of history lasted less than 100 years of one pastor per congregation, way less than 100 years. And so we had that little heyday of plenty of pastors and plenty of money in churches to pay for all this. And now we're going back again to where we were. So it's just history repeating itself. You are correct with that, Mike. And churches need to open up those relationships again and have those relationships and share pastors again. That's, wow, I see 2 of your hands going. I'll start with Barb and go back to you then. Okay, go ahead, Barb.
Biblical times when Paul across the ocean to another congregation. That's how it started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and he had assistants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's how it would work. You're right. Biblically, Paul did that. Yeah. Yeah.
What does have the power to do if they're not ordained in the church? What can they do of the service other than doing it? Can they do a sermon?
Yep.
Can they, of course
Yep.
they can read, because we all do that, and everything else. They can't give communion and they can't do communion. But can they give sermons? Can they do other things that if you don't have somebody assisting you?
What can the congregation cover if they don't have
The
it?
congregation
Okay.
cover everything else other than the communion.
Yeah.
And why
Yes.
not cover the communion
Yes.
too?
And that's okay. So the question was asked if, say the agreement theoretically is agreed upon. We don't have someone to fill in, and there's a Sunday where there is no pastor or lay assistant that has been given dispensation by the bishop. What do? You can have a service of the word. There would be no communion, because that is one of the teachings of the church there with that there has to be a pastor or someone who's been given dispensation to preside at the communion service. You can't have baptisms and you can't preside at weddings. You can't do that. Sorry. Yeah. What's that? You can get it online? Yeah. All right. Well, you can get it online, but it's not going to be valid in this building. Sorry. So, yeah. So it's at 1 o'clock now. I was hoping to sew up right about this time here because I got to get ready to go to Bear Creek Camp. So, so I've got that. Are there any other final questions or anything that anyone has? Let's hear. Yes, Joanne.
Because I have a visitor too.
Mm-hmm.
It's scary for all of us to make.
Yeah.
And that's why your first meeting.
And yeah, I know. And I know in that first meeting, when we were here and we had this, I was exhausted. I was wiped. I had spent half the night up with a family who lost their home in a fire. And I was with them and then came to worship services. So by the time I got here, I was drained. Bonnie even questioned me. She's like, she texted me afterward, "Are you okay?" Checking on me. And I'm like, yeah, I said, "I'm just tired." I just didn't have the energy to be able to keep going and address all of that. And so I was wiped out. And the one thing that I share with people when they like Dinkey and St. John's have asked, why didn't Trinity agree to it? What's the problem? And what I said was, they're scared. They're scared. They're afraid of possibilities of the church not being there, of not existing. And I want you to know I am willing to do this and do this for these congregations because I want this. I want these congregations to keep going. I want to see the ministry here at Trinity thrive and grow. And I want to see that. My desire is for that. And yeah. And you know what? And we work with who we have. This is who we got, and we build on, and we do what it is that God has called us to do. And I think if we are faithful to what it is that God is calling us to do, and we do that work, people see that and people respond to it. That's why I don't care how many people come in here on a Sunday. My question is not, how do we get more people in the door? My question is, what ministry can we be doing? Because I think it's through that ministry and being faithful to God, that's where people are attracted to that. That's what's going to draw people in. And not by just going and knocking on their door and saying, "Hey, come into church." I don't think that's a bad thing to invite. Sometimes people need that invitation there with that. But I think if you really want to make an impact on the community, what we need to go out is knock on those doors and ask them, how can we as a congregation best be serving this community? What do we need to be doing? Because that's what's going to attract people in that way. That's what I think, is knocking on doors in that fashion. So.
This is just a building that we're sitting in. The church is people that actually go out and
Yeah, I agree.
do it. So this could first hit the ground and we can still come here on Sunday morning and put out chairs.
The best image that I have of that is Christ Lutheran Church in Penn Forest. Their church was burned by arson on a Saturday night. This was years ago, before I even came to Dinkey. That was during my first call that happened, right? And so you're talking close to, 16 years ago, 17 years ago, something like that. Their church was set on fire by arson the Saturday night before worship. That Sunday morning, they still had church. And they met at the fire company down the road, and they received a bunch of new members that morning into their congregation. And I think that is the most beautiful image of church you will ever see, is they were being accepted into that congregation, and it wasn't about the building. It was about them being a part of what was going on. And yep. Yeah. It was Pat. I think it was Pat. Yeah. Yeah. So.
This could be a good thing, like bring people together and say, "Hey, look, this is what we got, and we can work together in this. It's not all about us. It's not all about us. It's about them and them."
Yeah, it's about us as a community of faith. Yeah. And that's what I see this agreement as. It's about community and how do we share? Because it's not just me as a resource I think you're sharing. I think it's not just me. It is the other gifts that each congregation has. How do you share them together, with that? Because I'll tell you right now, there's stuff they're doing at St. John's and I'm like, ooh, I want to see Dinkey and Trinity doing that, and so how do we share together with that.
Days that we, granted, this doesn't really help Pat's or what Joanne said, but if, if we don't have a pastor here, so I don't know where the church is.
Yeah, and you could, the option would be there. Yeah.
Maybe we should grow.
Yeah.
Saying that I want to see that.
Yeah. So, yep, exactly. All right,
I'd
everybody.
really like you to think about a 45-minute service for all. I really think that that might be really, really acceptable.
Okay. All right. Well, it's something for us to consider there in the future with that. Yeah. Yeah. But, well, I'll tell you what, may I end us with prayer. The Lord be with you.
And
And
also with you.
Let us pray. Lord God, I want to thank you. Thank you for the openness and the willingness for this congregation to be able to come together here and have this discussion here today. We know, Lord, it is scary that there are things that are important to us in our faith and things that we cherish and hold on to, and we never want to lose those things. So I pray you may help us to find security in those things we cherish from the past, but also in your willingness and your commitment to us. You are the one who has pulled us together as a congregation here at Trinity. You are the one we need to rely upon to give us the guidance, the insight, the wisdom necessary as we continue along in these conversations and as we make a decision on this parish agreement. So I pray that through the next several weeks, Lord, we may have some constructive conversation. We may have some open and honest conversation. But that in the midst of all of it, Lord, that we may keep you at the heart, at the center of it all. Thank you for your love. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for all that you give us. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Go in peace to serve and love the Lord. Thanks be to God. Well, thank you guys very much. Grace and peace to you, everyone. And God bless.